Welcome to a quiet lesson in focus and discipline. Tonight, we will explore how to become a stronger, steadier cash game player. Cash games reward patience, structure, and emotional control. Each decision builds on the last, each chip reflecting your habits and clarity. As you listen, let the rhythm of calm strategy guide you toward a deeper understanding of the game. Chapter 1. Understanding the nature of cash games. Cash games are the pure form of poker. The blinds stay the same, stacks can be reloaded, and every chip represents real value. Unlike tournaments, there is no finish line or payout ladder. The goal is steady profit through clear thinking and patience. Once you understand this difference, your entire approach changes. In a cash game, survival is not the concern. You are never forced out unless you choose to leave. That freedom means you can wait for the right situations instead of chasing short-term luck. Each decision stands alone, measured by logic rather than pressure. The calm rhythm of cash play rewards those who focus on quality, not speed. Time works differently here. In tournaments, blinds rise and urgency builds. In cash games, time stands still. You can fold 20 hands in a row without punishment, then win it all back with one strong decision. This slower pace demands emotional control. It invites patience and reflection. Many players lose money simply because they grow restless before the cards ever turn their way. The structure of a cash game also changes your goals. You are not building toward a trophy or payout jump. You are refining decisions that produce a small edge over and over again. That edge may be thin, but across hundreds of hands, it becomes meaningful. Cash poker is a game of quiet repetition, of discipline performed until it feels effortless. Because stacks can be refilled, mistakes carry real cost. A single careless call can erase hours of work. This is why bankroll awareness and emotional balance matter so much. In tournaments, busting once means starting fresh tomorrow. In cash, poor discipline invites tilt and deeper losses in the same night. Your edge lives in self-control. Position, table selection, and game flow all matter more when the blinds do not change. Choosing a good table with predictable players can be worth more than any single skill. Look for opponents who play too many hands or chase losses. Choose seats where you can observe and act last in most pots. Quiet awareness of the environment is often your strongest weapon. The best cash players think in terms of hours, not hands. They understand that their goal is to make small, repeatable profits and avoid emotional swings. They fold when behind and push value when ahead. There is no race, only rhythm. The table becomes a steady tide of opportunity, and patience keeps you floating above it rather than being pulled under. Focus on the process rather than the results. A good decision that loses still adds to your long-term success, while a bad decision that wins is still a step backward. Measure yourself by clarity of thought, not by temporary balance changes. When you think this way, poker becomes peaceful rather than stressful. Remember, cash games are a conversation between patience and precision. They reward observation more than aggression, timing more than speed. The player who learns to sit still, breathe, and act only when logic demands it will find lasting success. Each hand is its own small lesson in discipline, and the table is a classroom that never closes. Understanding the nature of cash games begins with letting go of urgency. There is no finish line to chase, only steady growth to build. Once you feel the rhythm of calm decision-making, you stop fighting the game and start flowing with it. That is where real consistency begins. Chapter 2. Building a solid foundation. Every strong cash game player begins with a stable base. Without structure, skill and luck drift aimlessly. A solid foundation is not just about cards. It includes table choice, stake selection, and the environment where your mind can stay calm. These decisions before you sit down often matter more than what happens once the cards are dealt. Start by choosing the right stakes. Play at a level where the money matters but does not create fear. If you play too high, anxiety clouds judgment. If you play too low, boredom can lead to carelessness. The right stake is one where every decision feels meaningful, but never overwhelming. You should be able to fold without frustration and call without panic. Next, choose your table carefully. A soft game with friendly, talkative players often provides the best environment for steady profit. Avoid tables filled with tension or obvious skill. Look for players who enter too many pots, chase draws, or show emotion after losing. These are signs of opportunity. The more you play with opponents who act on impulse, the easier it becomes to stay disciplined yourself. Position matters before the game even begins. Try to sit where aggressive players are to your right and predictable ones to your left. This allows you to act after the wild players and before the cautious ones. Position control at the table gives you freedom to guide the rhythm of the game. A simple seat change can quietly turn a hard session into a profitable one. Bring enough chips to play comfortably. A common mistake is sitting down short-stacked when others are deep. Deep stacks give you space to maneuver, extract value, and apply pressure. When you are short, every pot becomes an all-in race. If your bankroll allows, always buy in for the full amount. It signals confidence and gives you the tools to play with patience. Distraction control is part of your foundation too. Cash games often run long. Phones, conversations, or background noise can quietly drain focus. Before you sit down, decide that the table will be your full attention. The players who fade into chatter or social media lose sight of details that others quietly use against them. Discipline begins before the first hand is dealt. Your mental state should match your goals. Do not play when you are tired, angry, or distracted by life outside the game. Cash games are open-ended. There is no need to force a session. A clear, rested mind performs better and loses less. The discipline to skip a bad night is as valuable as the courage to play a good one. Understanding game flow also builds foundation. Every table has its own rhythm, some fast and aggressive, others calm and cautious. Observe for a few orbits before entering major pots. Watch how players size their bets, how often they bluff, and how they react to pressure. This early awareness sets the tone for all your decisions later. Bankroll structure belongs in your preparation. Set limits for how much you are willing to lose in a session. If you reach that point, walk away. Tilt often begins when players chase losses instead of accepting them. A firm limit protects both your wallet and your peace of mind. Finally, remind yourself that poker is a craft. Each session builds experience. The better your setup, the stronger your performance. When you prepare thoughtfully, your decisions at the table come naturally. You no longer chase control, you already have it. Building a solid foundation means respecting the quiet details most players ignore. Choose the right stake, table, and mindset. Bring enough chips to act freely. Sit where you can observe and learn. When you build your game this way, you start every session one step ahead, calm, ready, and grounded in structure. Chapter 3. Managing your bankroll. Bankroll management is the quiet protector of every successful poker player. It separates those who last from those who disappear after one bad run. Your bankroll is not just money. It is time, opportunity, and freedom. Managing it wisely keeps you calm through variance and confident through uncertainty. Without that stability, even great players collapse under pressure. The first rule is simple: never play with money you cannot afford to lose. Poker requires emotional detachment from each chip. When the money on the table feels tied to bills or stress, you make defensive choices. You fold when you should call, or chase when you should quit. A bankroll should sit outside your real-world responsibilities. It exists only for the game, never beyond it. Determine your limits before you play. For cash games, a good rule is to keep at least 20 to 30 full buy-ins for the level you play. This buffer protects you from natural swings. Even if you lose several sessions in a row, you still have space to recover without panic. The goal is not to avoid losing, it is to ensure losing never changes your process. Respect the idea of session limits. Set a stop-loss amount before each session, a number that tells you when to step away. When emotions rise, this preset limit makes decisions simple. You do not have to debate or justify staying. You simply honor the rule you made while calm. Walking away with control is a sign of strength, not defeat. Tracking results also helps maintain discipline. Write down your buy-ins, profits, and losses. Over time, this record reveals trends in your play. You will see which games suit you best, what times of day you focus most, and how your mindset affects performance. Knowledge turns vague emotions into measurable patterns. Avoid jumping stakes too quickly. Many players move up after a few wins, believing they are ready for tougher games. Others chase losses by dropping too low and playing impatiently. Both paths create imbalance. Let your bankroll grow naturally. Move up only when you can comfortably afford at least 20 full buy-ins at the new level. This patience builds confidence that cannot be shaken by one bad night. When you do move up, treat it like a test, not a permanent shift. Play a few sessions at the higher stakes and watch your comfort level. If the pressure feels heavy or the swings too fast, move back down without shame. Returning to a smaller game is not failure, it is maturity. The best professionals move up and down regularly, protecting their stability above all else. Separate your poker funds from daily life. Keep them in a dedicated account or tracking app. Mixing them with personal money blurs emotional boundaries. You should always know exactly how much of your bankroll is in play, how much remains, and how much you can risk. Clarity brings calm. Remember that bankroll management also means managing your mental energy. If a long downswing begins, take time off. Rest resets perspective. Many players try to grind through bad stretches and only dig deeper holes. The best recovery often starts away from the table, where stress fades and logic returns. Your bankroll represents more than numbers. It reflects your patience, humility, and discipline. Every careful choice strengthens it. Every emotional impulse weakens it. Protecting it means protecting your ability to play tomorrow. Cash games never end. There will always be another hand, another table, another session. The player who manages their bankroll calmly and consistently never runs out of chances to win. That is the true secret of poker longevity, staying in the game long enough for your discipline to pay off. Chapter 4. The Importance of Position. Position is the heartbeat of poker. It decides who acts first, who gathers information, and who controls the flow of every hand. In cash games, where decisions repeat endlessly, position often matters more than the cards themselves. A good hand out of position can lose. A mediocre hand in position can win. Understanding this truth turns poker from guessing into structure. At the table, position is determined by the dealer button. The closer you are to the button, the later you act after the flop. Acting last means you see what everyone else has done before making your choice. You get to collect information while others play in the dark. That small advantage repeats every orbit, hand after hand. The best seats in poker are the cutoff and button. These positions let you control the pace. You can decide whether to raise, call, or fold based on the behavior of the entire table. When everyone checks to you, a simple bet often takes the pot. When someone bets, you get to respond with clarity instead of guessing. This constant flow of extra information compounds into steady profit. Out of position, the game becomes harder. When you act first, you must bet or check without knowing what your opponent will do. You reveal more information than you receive. Skilled players exploit this by calling more in position and folding more when out of it. They keep pots small when at a disadvantage and build them when ahead. Position also shapes which hands you play. From early position, where many players act after you, stick to strong, clear hands, big pairs, strong aces, and solid suited connectors. From late position, you can widen your range. Hands like suited gappers, weak aces, and medium pairs gain value because you will see how the table reacts before committing. In cash games, position allows creativity. Deep stacks mean multiple betting rounds, and acting last gives you time to guide each one. You can choose to control pot size, apply pressure, or take free cards when needed. This flexibility is why professionals value position above almost everything else. They would rather have an average hand in position than a premium one out of it. Bluffing becomes safer in position. You can apply pressure when opponents show weakness and back off when they show strength. Without position, bluffing becomes dangerous guesswork. Even your strongest reads can crumble when the opponent has the final move. When defending blinds, remember that you are committing to playing out of position. This makes pre-flop discipline crucial. Calling raises too often from the blinds leads to difficult post-flop spots. Protect your chips by entering pots where your hand has clear playability. Sometimes the best defense is a calm fold. Position also affects value betting. When you act last, you can size bets to extract the maximum from weaker holdings. You can see how much your opponent is willing to call and respond accordingly. Acting first often forces you to guess. Control over timing means control over profit. Even small positional shifts matter. Sitting directly to the left of an aggressive player gives you leverage. You can watch them act before you and use their habits to your advantage. Sitting to their right, however, puts you constantly under attack. Table awareness and seat choice are small edges that add up across long sessions. Good players think of position not as a fixed rule, but as a rhythm. It defines when to attack, when to defend, and when to wait. It is the quiet advantage that never fades and never relies on luck. In every hand, ask yourself where you stand in the order and how that position changes your decision. Let that awareness guide your play until it becomes second nature. When position leads your thought process, the rest of your strategy follows smoothly. Calm, informed action from good position is one of the purest paths to steady profit in poker. Chapter 5. Playing tight and smart. Cash game poker rewards patience more than impulse. Many players sit down and play too many hands, driven by curiosity or boredom. They chase small thrills that cost real money over time. Playing tight and smart means choosing quality over quantity. It is not about playing scared. It is about staying focused on long-term profit rather than short-term excitement. A tight strategy begins with discipline before the flop. Choose hands that have real potential to win. Strong pairs, suited connectors, and high cards play best because they can make top pairs, straights and flushes that hold up against multiple opponents. Hands like 9-4 offsuit or Jack-6 offsuit create weak pairs that rarely improve and often lead to trouble. Folding them early keeps your stack healthy and your focus clear. Position connects directly to tight play. In early position, act carefully because many players are still left to act behind you. A raise from under the gun should mean strength, not curiosity. In late position, you can widen your range slightly, but stay selective. A good hand in position is valuable, but poor hands in position can still cost money if you rely too much on luck. Smart players also know when to release hands after the flop. Many beginners fall in love with pairs, refusing to fold even when danger appears. A small pair on a board full of high cards often spells trouble. A disciplined fold costs nothing compared to a stubborn call that ends in regret. Every saved chip is another chance to play a better hand later. Playing tight does not mean being predictable. Mix your play occasionally. Raise with a suited connector from late position or re-raise with ace-queen to balance your range. The goal is not to become robotic, but to make logical adjustments while staying disciplined. Variety keeps opponents uncertain without drifting into recklessness. Being smart also means observing others while you wait. Use the time you spend folding to gather information. Watch how players size their bets, how often they defend their blinds, and how they react to pressure. This knowledge turns patience into power. When you finally enter a hand, you do so with deeper understanding of your opponent's tendencies. Avoid the trap of frustration. Some sessions bring long stretches without playable cards. Many players loosen up out of boredom, entering pots they know are weak. This impatience slowly erases all earlier discipline. Remember that cash games have no clock. You can fold for an hour and still leave profitable if you play well when it matters. Boredom is not a reason to risk money. Playing tight and smart also helps control tilt. When your starting hands are stronger, losing hurts less because you know you made sound decisions. Emotional stability grows naturally from structure. A loose player rides constant waves of luck. A tight, disciplined player moves steadily through calm waters. When you do play a hand, play it with purpose. Raise when you believe you are ahead. Fold when logic says you are behind. Avoid passive calls that give away initiative. Strong decisions create rhythm and confidence. Even folding with clarity builds strength because it keeps your focus on long-term growth. Over time, tight play teaches respect for patience. The quieter you become, the more others reveal themselves. You begin to see that poker is not about playing every hand, but about playing the right ones with calm conviction. The best cash players are not the busiest. They are the most selective. They fold more than they act, but when they do enter a pot, they do so with structure and purpose. Each hand fits into a plan. Each bet has meaning. Playing tight and smart transforms poker from chaos into calm strategy, a game where discipline becomes your most consistent weapon. Chapter 6. Adapting to Table Dynamics. No two poker tables play the same. Each one has its own rhythm, pace, and personality. Some tables are loud and aggressive, with players raising every hand. Others are quiet and patient, waiting for perfect cards. To win consistently in cash games, you must learn to adapt to these shifting environments. The cards matter less than your ability to adjust. When you first sit down, observe before acting. Watch how often players see flops. Notice if they call too much or fold easily to aggression. Within 10 minutes, you will sense the table's mood. A loose table feels fast, noisy, and filled with chatter. A tight table feels slow, calm, and full of long pauses. This first impression is your starting point for adjustment. At a loose table, players enter many pots and call wide. Here, patience becomes your weapon. Value bet more often, bluff less, and let others pay to see weak hands fail. You do not need fancy moves. Simply wait for strong holdings and bet clearly for value. Loose opponents build big pots on their own. Your job is to collect them quietly. At a tight table, the opposite approach works. When players fold too much, aggression gains value. Steal blinds more often, raise in position, and continuation, bet against fear. Small, well-timed pressure wins chips that tight players refuse to defend. You become the rhythm setter, the calm storm that moves the action forward while they watch. As the table changes, your strategy must change with it. Players come and go. A single new player can alter the flow entirely. Stay aware of how energy shifts after each new arrival. A table that was calm may turn wild if an aggressive player sits down. If this happens, tighten your range slightly and let them create mistakes. When the table calms again, widen back out. Adaptation also applies to stack sizes. Deep tables play differently from shallow ones. Deep stacks encourage creative post-flop play and larger bluffs. Shallow stacks turn hands into pre-flop battles and all-ins. Adjust your plan for each environment. Use deep situations to apply pressure and shallow ones to protect your chips. Your seat position affects how you adapt too. Sitting directly to the left of an aggressive player gives you control. You can watch their actions before deciding. Sitting to their right requires caution because you act before them each hand. If you notice an aggressive player causing problems, consider requesting a seat change. Position is part of adaptation, not luck. Table dynamics shift over time as fatigue sets in. After long sessions, players grow tired or careless. A tight player might loosen up. A loose player might slow down after losing a big pot. These emotional swings are subtle but predictable. Stay calm and notice the small details, size, posture, or chip handling. Every mood change offers new opportunity. Do not fight the table. Many players try to force their preferred style, even when the environment does not fit. A naturally aggressive player loses control in a wild game. A patient player loses chances in a tight one. Flexibility is the quiet strength that separates consistent winners from stubborn ones. Adaptation does not mean chaos. You should not change strategy every hand. It means understanding what kind of story the table is telling and deciding how your role fits within it. You are not reacting emotionally. You are responding logically to the environment. The calm player who adapts smoothly never feels out of place. They let the table come to them. When it moves fast, they wait. When it slows, they press. Over hours of play, these subtle shifts create steady results. Poker rewards awareness more than aggression. By learning to read the table's rhythm and adjust your tempo, you move in harmony with the game instead of against it. Each table becomes a new landscape, and your quiet ability to adapt becomes the bridge between chance and control. Chapter 7. Value Betting. Clearly. Value betting is one of the simplest concepts in poker, yet one of the hardest to execute with discipline. It means betting when you believe you have the best hand and can be called by worse. It sounds easy, but fear and hesitation often cloud judgment. Many players bet too small, afraid to lose a customer, or check when they should extract value. Clear, confident value betting separates patient winners from uncertain players. In cash games, value betting is your steady engine of profit. Since the blinds never rise, there is no rush to steal pots. You build your stack slowly by getting paid when you are ahead. A correct value bet might earn only a few chips now, but repeated hundreds of times it becomes the foundation of consistent success. The first rule of value betting is to know your opponent. Against loose players who call too often, you can bet big with strong hands. They will convince themselves to call with second pair or weak top pair. Against tight players, use smaller bets. They fold easily, so smaller sizing keeps them curious enough to pay. Each opponent has a comfort zone, and your job is to bet where they will still say yes. Bet sizing should always tell a clear story. Your opponent should believe your line makes sense from start to finish. If the board looks dangerous, and you suddenly make a huge overbet, you may scare away the hands you wanted to be called by. If the board is dry and safe, smaller bets often work better. The goal is to invite a call from worse hands, not to chase them away. Many players fall into the trap of checking too often with strong hands. They fear that if they bet, everyone will fold and they will win nothing. But checking misses value from hands that would have paid. Remember, your job is not to win the pot, it is to win the most from it. Every time you check behind with the best hand, you give up chips that were already waiting for you. Clear value betting also means knowing when to stop. When your opponent shows sudden strength or raises aggressively, pause and reevaluate. Good players can sense when they are behind and will not call without reason. Do not turn a made hand into a bluff by forcing extra bets when the situation has changed. Sometimes checking behind on the river saves more than it costs. Position improves your ability to value bet. Acting last lets you judge your opponent's willingness to call. You can bet smaller against hesitation or larger when they show curiosity. From early position, value betting requires more caution since you have less information. In cash games, patience in early spots and clarity in late spots combine for the best long-term gain. The best value bettors stay emotionally calm. They do not bet out of excitement or greed. Each wager is deliberate and logical. The bet size matches the story, the opponent, and the board. There is no rush, no hope, only structure. You will not always be called, but that does not mean the bet was wrong. Each correct value bet adds to your long-term edge, whether or not it earns chips that time. Remember that cash poker is a game of small victories. You do not need massive bluffs or heroic calls to win. You need clear, consistent value extraction from hands that are better than your opponent's range. A calm bet for value, 3 times a night, can mean more profit than hours of wild play. When you think about value betting, think about clarity. Bet when you believe you are ahead. Size your bet for the player, not your ego. Accept folds when they come, and be content knowing your decision was correct. In the long run, your calm, structured value bets will create the steady growth that defines real poker discipline. Chapter 8: Bluffing with Logic. Bluffing is one of the most exciting ideas in poker, but also one of the most misunderstood. Many players treat it like a gamble, an act of boldness that can turn weak hands into big wins. In truth, good bluffs are calm, planned, and built on logic. A bluff is not a wild move. It is a decision backed by story, structure, and timing. The first rule of bluffing is purpose. Never bluff simply because you are bored or missed the flop. Every bluff should tell a believable story about a strong hand. Ask yourself what hand you are representing and whether the board supports that story. If you cannot answer those questions clearly, fold instead. In cash games, bluffing works best in selective, thoughtful moments. The blinds do not rise, so there is no need to force action. You can wait for boards and situations that make sense for your image and position. Patience keeps your bluffs credible, because they appear as part of a consistent pattern, rather than a random outburst. The second rule is to understand your opponent. Bluffing loose or curious players often fails, because they call too often. Bluffing tight or cautious players succeeds because they fear losing. Before you attempt a bluff, identify which type of player you are facing. A bluff that works against one person may lose instantly against another. Position increases your bluff strength. Acting last lets you see how your opponent reacts before making your move. When they check or hesitate, you can represent confidence with a well-timed bet. Out of position, bluffing becomes much riskier because you must act first without information. Good players bluff most often from late position, where control belongs to them. The size of your bluff matters too. Bet enough to apply pressure, but not so much that only better hands can call. On dry boards, smaller bluffs are more believable. On coordinated boards, larger bluffs can tell a convincing story of a made hand. Choose your sizing to match the texture. A consistent, realistic line is more powerful than raw aggression. Semi-bluffing is one of the safest forms of bluffing. A semi-bluff is when you bet with a drawing hand, such as a flush or straight draw. You may win immediately if your opponent folds, but even if they call, you can still improve and win later. This dual path to victory makes semi-bluffs a reliable part of solid strategy. Blockers also support logical bluffing. A blocker is a card in your hand that makes it less likely your opponent holds a certain strong combination. For example, if you hold the ace of hearts on a heart-heavy board, it becomes less likely they have the nut flush. These small details help you choose moments where your story makes sense. Avoid multi-street bluffs without a clear plan. Many players start with a bluff on the flop and continue automatically on the turn and river. Each bet should serve a purpose. Ask yourself what weaker hands you expect your opponent to fold on each street. If that list shrinks too much, stop the bluff. Controlled bluffs maintain profit. Reckless ones destroy it. Your table image plays a big role. If you have been tight and quiet, your bluffs carry more weight. Opponents will give you credit for strong hands. If you have been aggressive or caught bluffing recently, rebuild your image with solid value hands before bluffing again. Patience restores credibility. Finally, accept that bluffs sometimes fail. Even perfect logic cannot beat luck or curiosity every time. The key is emotional calm. When a bluff gets called, review it later with honesty. Did the story make sense? Was the opponent capable of folding? Learning from each attempt refines your instinct. Bluffing with logic turns chaos into control. It is not about bravery, but balance. A few quiet, well-timed bluffs woven into your value hands keep opponents guessing and protect your real strength. Over time, this measured approach builds a reputation of confidence and clarity, the true mark of a thoughtful cash game player. Chapter 9. Reading opponents slowly. Poker is a game of information, and in cash games, that information unfolds slowly. Every movement, bet, and hesitation reveals a small piece of a player's story. Reading opponents is not about making big predictions. It is about quiet observation, watching long enough for patterns to appear. The best reads do not come from one hand. They come from hours of steady attention. Start with the basics. Observe how your opponents handle their chips, cards, and reactions. Do they act quickly or take their time? Do they talk while in a hand or grow silent? Each behavior tells you something about comfort and confidence. A player who suddenly sits upright or stops speaking often has a stronger hand than usual. Someone who keeps talking may be trying to appear relaxed when they are not. Betting patterns reveal even more. Some players always bet the same amount with strong hands and smaller when they are uncertain. Others bluff quickly, but take longer to value bet. Over time, these habits become consistent signals. You do not need to guess their exact cards, only their level of strength. Once you understand that rhythm, decisions become easier. Stack size also provides clues. A short-stacked player often acts with desperation, pushing all in to double up or leave. A deep-stacked player may take more creative lines, comfortable with risk. Recognizing how stack size shapes emotion helps you predict behavior. Small stacks defend less. Deep stacks explore more. Pay attention to showdowns. Every time cards are revealed, you gain truth. Compare what they showed to how they acted. Did they bet strongly with a weak hand, or check quietly with a monster? These moments teach you how they disguise strength or weakness. The next time they take a similar line, you will know what it likely means. Position affects behavior too. Watch how players change their range from early to late position. A tight player might only raise strong hands from early position, but open wider near the button. Recognizing these positional habits helps you avoid traps and find safe bluffs. Timing tells are often the most revealing. Quick checks usually mean weakness or disinterest, while long pauses can mean uncertainty or planning. However, do not jump to conclusions. Some players intentionally mix their timing to confuse others. The goal is not to react to one moment, but to gather patterns across sessions. Emotional cues matter as much as technical ones. Notice how players respond after losing a big pot. Do they tighten up or play faster to chase losses? Emotional shifts are windows into their mindset. Tilted players overvalue marginal hands and bluff in frustration. Calm players stick to logic. Adjust your strategy based on which one you are facing. Reading opponents also requires understanding yourself. The more control you maintain over your own reactions, the easier it becomes to notice others. If your mind is distracted by your own losses or excitement, you miss the small signs happening across the table. A quiet mind sees clearly. Avoid stereotypes. Not every old player is tight, and not every young player is aggressive. Let behavior guide your assumptions, not appearance. Poker punishes those who rely on surface impressions instead of real observation. Treat each opponent as unique and let their actions build their story naturally. Finally, remember that reading is not guessing. It is a slow accumulation of truth. You are not trying to see through people like glass. You are learning their rhythms through patience. Over time, you stop hearing noise and start hearing patterns. In cash games, this slow understanding creates calm confidence. You do not need to force reads or make dramatic hero calls. You simply notice, remember, and act when the picture becomes clear. The quiet player who watches carefully often wins without surprise, because by the time the big pot comes, they already knew what was coming. Chapter 10: Controlling Tilt and Emotion. Tilt is the silent enemy of every poker player. It sneaks in after a bad beat, a misread hand, or a long night of frustration. You may not feel it right away, but it changes how you think and act. It makes you chase what you lost, bluff without reason, or fold out of fear. In cash games, where play never ends, tilt can erase hours of good work in a few minutes. Controlling it is the mark of a real professional. Tilt begins in emotion. A mix of anger, disappointment, or impatience clouds judgment. When emotion replaces logic, your brain starts to defend pride instead of protecting chips. The first step to control is awareness. Notice the early signs: a faster heartbeat, shorter breathing, or frustration at small things. Recognizing these signals lets you act before mistakes grow. When you feel tilt rising, pause. Take a deep breath and count slowly. The physical act of breathing resets your focus. Do not rush into the next hand. Fold a round or two if needed. Let your thoughts settle before returning to play. Even a short break can save your session. Many players try to fight tilt by forcing wins. They believe that one big pot will fix everything. In truth, chasing losses only deepens the problem. The best recovery is to step away or reduce your stakes. Calm returns faster when the pressure drops. A quiet walk, a glass of water, or even silence away from the table helps restore balance. Remember that bad beats are part of poker. Even perfect decisions lose sometimes. The cards do not owe you fairness, and the deck does not remember what happened last hand. Accepting this truth turns frustration into patience. The goal is not to avoid pain, but to process it calmly. When you can lose a hand without losing focus, you are already ahead of most players. Building routines can protect you from tilt before it starts. Eat light, stay hydrated, and rest between sessions. Fatigue and hunger make emotions stronger. A tired mind reacts, a rested mind responds. Set limits on how long you play. When your concentration fades, end the session with control, instead of waiting for mistakes to decide it for you. Tilt also comes from ego. Wanting to beat a certain player or prove a point blinds you to reason. Poker is not a battle of pride, but a practice of patience. The cards will not reward emotion. Detach from results and focus on process. Each hand is its own event, not a score to settle. If you find yourself tilted often, track when it happens. Write down what triggered it. Was it a bad beat, a careless mistake, or something outside poker? Patterns will appear, and awareness will create prevention. Understanding why tilt happens is how you stop it before it grows. In live cash games, environment helps too. If a player is loud or irritating, ask for a seat change. Protecting your mindset is worth more than ego. You are not leaving the challenge, you are protecting your edge. The calm player who manages emotion becomes unshakable. Wins and losses carry less weight because neither defines them. They play their strategy, hand after hand, no matter what the cards bring. This steady rhythm builds confidence that luck cannot touch. Controlling tilt does not mean suppressing feelings. It means letting them pass without reaction. The goal is not to be emotionless, but to remain balanced. Poker is a long journey. The player who keeps their mind peaceful survives every storm and sees the game for what it truly is, a test of patience, not emotion. Chapter 11. Understanding Stack Depth. In cash games, stack depth defines how every hand should be played. It changes the value of hands, the pressure of bets, and the meaning of position. Many players overlook it, treating every hand the same no matter how many chips they have. The truth is simple: your stack size shapes your entire strategy. Deep stacks create flexibility. When everyone has 100 big blinds or more, there is room to plan multiple streets ahead. You can build pots slowly, apply pressure, or call to see more cards. In deep situations, hands with potential, suited connectors, small pairs, and suited aces grow stronger because they can make hidden monsters. The deeper the stacks, the higher the reward for patience and creativity. Shallow stacks limit movement. When you or your opponent have less than 50 big blinds, poker becomes a game of precision. The space between pre-flop and all-in grows smaller. Fancy plays lose value, and simple decisions gain importance. In these situations, strong top pairs and high cards matter more than speculative draws. Small mistakes cost proportionally more because recovery is harder. Medium stacks sit in between, demanding balance. You can still apply post-flop pressure, but must stay aware of pot size. Medium depth requires clear discipline. Each bet matters. You cannot chase every draw or build every pot, so your plan must stay efficient. Understanding your opponent's stack sizes is just as important as knowing your own. When a short-stacked player enters a hand, expect them to commit early. When a deep-stacked opponent calls, prepare for longer battles across multiple streets. Adjust your aggression and bet sizing to the depth of each player you face. Stack depth also determines bluff frequency. Deep stacks allow more room for bluffing, because you can represent multiple hands across 3 streets. Shallow stacks remove that luxury. Bluffs lose credibility when your opponent only needs to call once or twice before all the chips are in. Learn when structure allows creativity and when simplicity wins. Position interacts directly with stack size. Being in position with a deep stack gives you the most power possible in cash games. You can control pot size, apply pressure, or take free cards. Out of position with a deep stack is dangerous, because you must act without full information for several betting rounds. The deeper you are, the more position matters. Stack depth also shapes post-flop planning. Before you bet, think about how many big blinds remain and what future bets will look like. Do not start a sequence you cannot finish. If a pot grows faster than your stack allows, pause and reevaluate. Calm awareness of stack-to-pot ratio prevents mistakes that come from emotional aggression. Deep stacks reward patience, but they also demand control. Many players overvalue the freedom of deep play and chase big bluffs or speculative hands without discipline. The key is balance. Use your depth to make thoughtful plays, not emotional ones. Deep stacks amplify both good and bad habits. Your goal is to make sure only the good ones grow. With shallow stacks, the opposite mistake happens. Players become afraid to risk chips and play too tight. They fold away opportunities that still hold positive value. In these spots, courage matters more than creativity. You must recognize when committing is correct and trust your math. The calm player understands that stack depth is not about fear or freedom. It is about structure. Each situation carries its own logic. Whether deep, medium, or short, your plan should fit the math and emotion of the moment. When you master stack depth, every table feels familiar. You stop guessing and start adjusting. You no longer rely on luck or instinct alone. You make decisions rooted in understanding of space, timing, and proportion. That balance turns every chip into a tool, and every stack, no matter its size, into a calm expression of control. Chapter 12. Playing short stacked calmly. Every poker player faces moments with a short stack. It might happen after a bad beat, a failed bluff, or simply a long session of patient play. Whatever the cause, the key is calm acceptance. A small stack does not mean the game is over. It only changes the structure of your strategy. Playing short-stacked calmly is about staying logical, not emotional. When you have fewer than 50 big blinds, your options narrow. There is less room for creative play and more emphasis on precision. Big speculative hands like suited connectors lose value because they rely on implied odds, the potential to win large pots when they hit. With a short stack, you no longer have that space. Instead, focus on hands with clear immediate strength. High cards, pairs, and strong suited aces gain importance. Your first goal with a short stack is survival with discipline. Many players panic and push all in too soon, hoping for a miracle double-up. Others grow too passive, waiting endlessly for perfect cards until the blinds eat their stack. The correct path lies between these extremes. Be selective, but also realistic. Choose good spots to commit your chips when you still have fold equity, meaning your opponents can still fold to your bet. Position remains powerful, even with a small stack. From early position, stay tight and patient. From late position, look for chances to steal blinds or re-raise with strong hands. Because cash games have fixed blinds, stealing does not build as much as in tournaments, but it still adds steady value and keeps your presence active at the table. Pre-flop planning becomes crucial. When your stack reaches around 20 to 30 big blinds, think in terms of push or fold. If you enter a pot, you often cannot afford to fold later. Avoid calling raises unless you have a clear post-flop plan. Limping or flat calling invites trouble because you give away control without enough chips to apply pressure later. Stack-to-pot ratio guides your decisions. With a short stack, SPR is low, meaning pots grow quickly in proportion to your chips. A single continuation bet can commit you fully. Recognize this early, so you do not get trapped halfway through a hand. If the pot grows too big to fold later, make sure you are comfortable committing now. Avoid emotional reactions. Losing a big hand often creates frustration, and short stacks magnify that feeling. You might feel pressure to win chips back quickly. Resist that urge. Patience and logic matter more than ever when you are short. A calm fold now creates the space to rebuild later. Tilt only speeds up the loss. Observation still matters, even when you are low on chips. Watch for players who isolate weak opens or fold too often to aggression. Your short stack can still carry power if used wisely. A well-timed shove against predictable players often earns folds that rebuild momentum without showdown. If your stack falls too low, consider rebuying if the game allows. Cash games give you that freedom. Sitting short forever limits your options and reduces edge. Adding chips when you are calm and thinking clearly restores flexibility. Only rebuy, however, if your mindset is steady. Do not add money when you are tilted or chasing losses. When you are all in, accept the result quietly. You made a decision based on logic, and that is all you can control. Whether the cards fall your way or not does not matter long term. What matters is the process that guided your action. Playing short-stacked calmly is an exercise in discipline. You are not fighting against the stack. You are working with it, shaping your plan around its limits. When you treat short-stack play as a test of patience and logic, you stop fearing it. You become comfortable in every situation, knowing that clear decisions, not chip counts, define your strength as a player. Chapter 13. Bet Sizing Fundamentals. Bet sizing is the quiet language of poker. Every amount you choose tells a story, shapes your opponent's reaction, and defines the value of your hand. In cash games, where stacks are deep and chips hold steady value, bet sizing becomes one of your most important tools. A well-sized bet builds structure. A careless one invites chaos. The first rule of bet sizing is purpose. Every bet you make should have a reason. You are either betting for value, bluffing, or protecting a hand. Never bet simply because you feel like you should. Ask yourself what you want to achieve. A clear reason leads naturally to the right size. Betting for value means you expect to be called by worse hands. In this case, your sizing should invite that call. Against loose players, you can bet larger because they are curious and often chase. Against tight players, smaller bets may earn more because they fear large risks. Adjusting to personality creates smoother results than following fixed numbers. When bluffing, your goal is to represent strength while risking as little as possible. A bluff that works 50% of the time only needs to be half the size of the pot to break even. Use logic, not emotion, to choose the size. If a smaller bet tells the same story, there is no need to overcommit. Each chip saved is another chance to play tomorrow. The texture of the board also affects sizing. On dry boards with few draws, smaller bets make sense. Your opponent's range is narrow, and they will often fold or call without improvement. On wet boards full of draws, larger bets protect your hand and charge your opponents for chasing. Your bet size should fit the environment, not habit. Consistency between streets builds credibility. If you bet 1/3 of the pot on the flop, half the pot on the turn, and suddenly overbet the river, your story breaks. Opponents notice when actions do not align. A consistent pattern that matches your represented hand makes your value bets believable and your bluffs convincing. Bet sizing also helps you control pot size. When you want to keep the pot manageable with a medium-strength hand, use smaller bets. When you want to build the pot with a strong hand, increase size gradually. Think of betting as steering. You decide how large or small the final confrontation will be. Calm, deliberate sizing prevents emotional overcommitment. Position strengthens your control over bet size. When you act last, you can see how your opponent reacts before deciding how much to bet. Out of position, choose sizes that simplify decisions. A common mistake is betting too small out of position, inviting calls that create difficult turns. Slightly larger sizing often wins information and limits mistakes. Avoid automatic bet sizes. Many players always bet half the pot or 2/3 without thinking. This habit makes your range predictable. Vary your sizing with purpose. A smaller bet on the flop can keep your opponent's range wide for later value. A larger one can immediately define their strength. The goal is to control the rhythm of information. Pay attention to stack depth as well. With deep stacks, larger bets create leverage and give your bluffs power. With short stacks, bet sizes shrink naturally because commitment comes quickly. Awareness of stack-to-pot ratio helps you build bets that fit both risk and reward. Emotion is the biggest enemy of good sizing. Players frustrated after a loss often bet too big in the next hand. Those feeling nervous bet too small. Stay centered. Bet size should come from logic, not feeling. If you are unsure, take an extra breath before acting. A calm moment often saves a stack. The best bet sizes feel invisible. They flow naturally, neither forced nor hesitant. Each one reflects balance between strength, pressure, and reason. When you size your bets thoughtfully, you speak a language that opponents instinctively respect. Over time, that quiet precision becomes one of the clearest signs of true poker maturity. Chapter 14. Finding the right balance between caution and aggression. Poker rewards balance. Too much caution turns you into an easy target. Too much aggression burns through chips and invites disaster. The true skill lies in finding the middle ground, where patience and pressure work together. In cash games, that balance creates stability, rhythm, and control. Caution protects you from risk. It keeps you from chasing weak hands or calling when logic says fold. But taken too far, caution becomes fear. It makes you predictable and easy to read. Opponents sense hesitation and take pots that should have been yours. Your goal is not to avoid mistakes entirely, but to avoid emotional decisions. Smart caution is about structure, not retreat. Aggression, on the other hand, wins pots without cards. It forces weaker players to fold and strong players to think. But reckless aggression loses its edge. When every hand becomes a battle, you burn energy and chips. Consistent success in cash games comes from selective aggression, the kind that appears with purpose, not emotion. Start by understanding your natural tendency. Are you too careful, folding in spots where logic supports a raise? Or too wild, betting simply to stay active. Awareness is the first step toward balance. Once you see your default pattern, you can adjust consciously rather than reactively. Controlled aggression begins with position. In late position, use your advantage to apply gentle pressure. Raise more often when others show weakness. Continuation bet selectively, targeting players who fold too much. These small, well-timed actions build your table image as confident and unpredictable. When you later bet with a real hand, opponents will hesitate instead of calling automatically. Caution plays its role in early position. When you act first, give respect to the unknown. Avoid risky bluffs or speculative calls when too many players remain. A calm fold in these spots saves you from unnecessary traps. Good players know that patience in the early streets gives them power later. Table dynamics help guide your balance. At a wild table full of loose players, lean toward caution. Let others create chaos and collect the profits when they crash. At a tight, quiet table, shift toward aggression. Use small raises and well-placed bets to steal blinds and small pots. Adaptation, not routine, keeps your play balanced. Pay attention to timing. If you have folded for many orbits, your next raise will command more respect. Use that image to your advantage. If you have been active and caught bluffing recently, pull back for a few rounds. Let the table's perception reset. Balance means adjusting not just to strategy, but to memory, both yours and theirs. Watch for emotional imbalance. Frustration creates false aggression. Fear creates false caution. When either emotion takes control, pause. Take a deep breath, fold a few hands, and reset your rhythm. A clear mind is the foundation of balanced play. Balance also applies to bet sizing. Overly large bets scream strength or desperation. Tiny bets invite calls that erode your edge. Choose sizes that match the story you are telling. Consistency builds trust in your line, whether you hold value or air. The strongest cash players are those who never seem out of rhythm. They know when to slow down and when to push forward. Their aggression feels measured. Their caution feels deliberate. They are never rushed, never passive, always centered. Think of poker as a dance between risk and safety. One step forward, one step back, guided by logic and timing. If you lean too far in one direction, the balance breaks. But when both sides work in harmony, your decisions flow naturally. In the end, balance is not a number of bluffs or calls. It is a mindset. It means trusting logic more than emotion, action more than fear, and calm more than chaos. When you find that rhythm, you stop swinging wildly between extremes and start moving steadily forward, one thoughtful hand at a time. Chapter 15. Using table image to your advantage. Every player at the poker table carries an image, whether they realize it or not. Your opponents are constantly forming opinions about how you play, how tight or loose you are, how aggressive or cautious, how emotional or calm. That image shapes how they react to your bets, calls, and raises. In cash games, learning to manage and use that image is one of the most subtle yet powerful skills you can develop. Your table image begins forming the moment you sit down. Every hand you play, every bet you make, adds to the story others believe about you. If you start out tight, folding for long stretches, the table will label you as cautious. When you finally enter a pot, opponents will assume strength. If you start aggressive, raising often, and showing bluffs, they will call you lighter in the future. Your image determines how much respect your bets receive. The key is awareness. Most players build their image accidentally. They play however they feel in the moment, and never consider how others see them. You must do the opposite. Watch yourself through your opponent's eyes. Ask, what story am I telling them about my style? That question turns image from an accident into a tool. A tight image brings control. When you play few hands and show patience, opponents grow wary of challenging you. They fold more often, allowing you to pick up small pots with well-timed aggression. Once your tight reputation is set, you can steal blinds and continuation bet more often, because others expect you to have strong cards. This is how tight players quietly expand profit, by using their own reputation to take easy chips. An aggressive image can also work if used correctly. When you build a reputation for pressure and bluffs, observant players will begin calling you lighter. This creates the perfect setup for value betting. Once they expect you to bluff, your real hands get paid. The danger, however, is losing control. Aggressive images require discipline. Without it, opponents will trap you with strong hands, knowing you will push the action for them. Changing your image mid-session keeps opponents guessing. Start tight, then loosen up once respect is established. Or begin loose, then tighten up after a few orbits to appear patient and selective. This quiet evolution prevents others from reading you easily. Consistency helps strategy, but predictability helps your opponents. A few subtle shifts in rhythm make you harder to exploit. Your image also depends on body language and demeanor. Stay calm regardless of results. Emotional reactions, sighs, frustration, or celebration, color how others view you. A composed player appears in control and earns respect. A visibly shaken one invites attacks. In live games, your table presence communicates as loudly as your bet sizing. Online players also project image through patterns. Bet timing, frequency of raises, and chat behavior all leave traces. Even without seeing your face, opponents build assumptions about you. Consistency and control in these small actions protect your credibility and maintain an edge. Be aware that image takes time to form, but can vanish in one mistake. A single emotional outburst or careless bluff can undo hours of discipline. Guard your reputation carefully. In cash games, where players often recognize each other session after session, your image follows you. A calm, logical presence builds long-term trust, and that trust becomes a quiet weapon. Using table image effectively means turning perception into leverage. Let opponents believe what they want, then use it against them. If they think you are tight, bluff more. If they think you are wild, value bet relentlessly. You do not need to fight their assumptions. You simply guide them. The best players rarely need to show cards to control the table. Their reputation does the work. When you use your table image with patience and awareness, you gain power without noise. You stop reacting to others and start conducting the rhythm of the game, quietly, confidently, and always in control. Chapter 16. Folding as a Strength. Folding is one of the hardest skills to master in poker. It feels passive, almost like giving up. Many players associate folding with failure, because it means surrendering the pot. But in reality, folding is one of the strongest actions you can take. It protects your stack, preserves your focus, and keeps you alive long enough to find better opportunities. In cash games, where patience and longevity matter more than glory, folding is often the quiet key to success. The first step to folding well is understanding that poker is not about winning every hand. It is about making correct decisions. Folding a weak hand is a win in itself because it prevents loss. The chips you do not lose are as valuable as the ones you earn. When you fold logically, you are not retreating, you are advancing through discipline. Many players refuse to fold out of curiosity. They want to see one more card, or confirm a suspicion. That curiosity costs money over time. The truth is that you do not need to know whether your opponent was bluffing. You only need to know that continuing was not profitable. Logical folds are not emotional guesses. They are decisions built on math, position, and timing. Good folding starts pre-flop. Avoid the temptation to play too many hands, especially out of position. Weak hands look harmless, but they lead to difficult spots after the flop. Folding early keeps you from making harder decisions later. You will never regret folding 9-6 offsuit, but you will often regret calling with it. After the flop, folding becomes a test of humility. It means accepting that the board no longer fits your range, or that your opponent's line makes sense. Trust your logic over hope. When an opponent shows strength in multiple streets, and you hold a medium hand, step away calmly. The chips you save now will be waiting when the odds shift in your favor. Learn to recognize when folding is cheaper than calling for information. Many players call river bets just to see, and then shake their heads when shown the bad news. That one moment of ego costs more than an hour of good folds. Discipline is not built in easy decisions. It grows in moments of restraint. Your emotional state influences folding too. When you are tired or tilted, folding feels worse because it looks like weakness. But folding while calm feels natural. That is why emotional control and folding skill go hand in hand. The more centered you stay, the easier it becomes to release hands without frustration. Folding also strengthens your image. When you fold often and only show down strong hands, others start to respect your patience. They hesitate to challenge your bets. This allows you to steal small pots later because your folds earlier created credibility. Folding now builds profit later. Sometimes folding means letting go of big hands. Top pair or over pairs can look beautiful, but lose value when the board turns dangerous. Letting go in those spots takes courage. It means prioritizing long-term logic over short-term pride. A professional does not cling to strength out of ego. They fold when the math and story demand it. Think of folding as staying clean. Each fold clears mental clutter and protects emotional energy. You avoid the exhausting roller coaster of chasing every pot. Over long sessions, this calm rhythm adds up. You make fewer mistakes and stay sharper deep into the night. In poker, everyone remembers the big hero calls, but few remember the disciplined folds that kept them solvent. The player who folds well lasts longer, wins steadier, and stays balanced when others collapse. When you sit at the table, remind yourself, folding is not quitting. It is choosing peace over chaos, structure over impulse. In a game where patience defines success, folding is not weakness at all. It is quiet strength in its purest form. Chapter 17: Managing Variance and Patience. Poker is a game of skill, shaped by chance. No matter how strong you play, luck will rise and fall. You will make perfect decisions, and still lose. You will make mistakes and sometimes win anyway. This balance of skill and luck is called variance. Many players fear it, but real professionals learn to live with it peacefully. Managing variance with patience is how you stay calm, consistent, and confident over the long run. Variance is not something to beat, it is something to understand. It simply means that short-term results can swing wildly from expectation. In cash games, even good players can experience long stretches of losing. These streaks do not mean failure. They are part of the natural rhythm of probability. What separates disciplined players from emotional ones is how they respond when variance strikes. Patience begins with accepting what you cannot control. You cannot choose which cards come next. You cannot stop an opponent from hitting a lucky river. But you can choose your reaction. When you focus on decision quality instead of short-term outcomes, your stress fades. You start measuring success by whether you played correctly, not by whether you won the pot. Bankroll management plays a major role in handling variance. A properly sized bankroll absorbs swings without emotional panic. If you play within your limits, bad runs hurt less. You will not feel desperate to chase losses or jump stakes. Each session becomes one step in a long path, rather than a crisis to fix overnight. Patience also means trusting the math. Poker works in probabilities, not certainties. A hand that wins 70% of the time will still lose 3 times out of 10. Many players forget this and tilt when the minority outcomes appear. They call it bad luck, but in truth, it is just the math doing its work. Calm players expect it and stay steady through it. When variance turns against you, step back instead of pushing harder. Emotional players often increase aggression during downswings, trying to force results. That only speeds up losses. A short break or smaller game resets perspective. There is no shame in pausing. A rested mind returns sharper than one drowning in frustration. Variance also has a hidden gift. It teaches humility. It reminds every player that control has limits. You can only play your best and let the cards fall where they may. That lesson, once accepted, brings peace. It softens the highs and lows. Winning feels calm instead of frantic. Losing feels temporary instead of crushing. Patience turns variance into rhythm. Each hand becomes a note in a longer song. Some sessions bring harmony, others tension, but the melody continues. When you zoom out far enough, the noise of short-term luck fades into balance. Over hundreds of hours, good decisions always rise above chance. Managing variance also means recognizing its emotional pull. After a big win, pride whispers that you are invincible. After a big loss, doubt tells you that you are cursed. Both are illusions. Ground yourself between them. You are neither the luckiest nor the unluckiest player. You are simply someone walking the line between chaos and control, hand by hand. Keeping a log of sessions helps too. When you record results, you see patterns that emotion hides. A long run of losing sessions may feel endless in the moment, but on paper, it looks small in the big picture. Data builds perspective. Perspective restores patience. The best players treat variance like weather. They cannot stop the rain, but they know it will pass. They protect their mindset, trust their process, and stay focused on what matters, making clear, logical decisions. In poker, luck may decide a night, but patience decides a career. When you stop fighting variance and start flowing with it, the game becomes peaceful. You learn to wait without worry, act without anger, and play with the quiet confidence that in time your discipline will always bring you back to even and beyond. Chapter 18. Avoiding Fancy Play Syndrome. Poker can be an elegant game. There are moments when a clever bluff, a tricky check, or a disguised call feels like art. But the desire to play beautifully often leads to mistakes. This is called fancy play syndrome, when a player tries to be too creative, too deceptive, or too clever for their own good. In cash games, where consistency matters more than drama, simple logic almost always beats unnecessary flair. Fancy play begins when ego replaces discipline. You want to impress, to outthink, or to create a story that others will admire. The problem is that poker does not reward creativity by itself. It rewards correct decisions. Every time you take a line that looks clever but defies reason, you risk turning good hands into losses. The most common form of fancy play is over-bluffing. You spot a situation where a big bet could win the pot, even though your opponent clearly has something. The move might look brilliant once or twice, but over time, those unnecessary risks drain chips. The goal of poker is not to show skill through fireworks, it is to show skill through control. Another example is slow playing too often. Players with strong hands sometimes choose to trap instead of betting for value, hoping opponents will catch up. But most of the time, those opponents miss and fold later. You lose profit by waiting too long. A simple bet for value almost always earns more than an elaborate trap that never springs. Check raising with weak hands, calling out of position to set up a move later, or making oversized river bets just to appear strong, are all symptoms of fancy play. These tactics work occasionally, but fail consistently against observant opponents. Poker is not about tricking others every hand. It is about staying one step ahead in logic, not in showmanship. To avoid fancy play, start by simplifying your thought process. When facing a decision, ask yourself 3 calm questions. What am I trying to accomplish? Does my opponent's range make this move profitable? Is there a simpler way to achieve the same result? If you cannot answer clearly, choose the straightforward option. Value always matters more than style. A quiet continuation, bet on the flop, that earns a fold, achieves more than a flashy overbet that gets called by a better hand. Simple plays repeat profitably. Complex ones require perfect timing and luck. Cash games are long. Overcomplication creates fatigue and inconsistency. Many players fall into fancy play after a good run. Confidence turns into overconfidence. You start thinking you can outsmart anyone. This is when the game humbles you. When things are going well, stay disciplined. Continue making standard plays that have worked. Creativity is a spice, not a foundation. Use it sparingly. Fancy play also grows from boredom. After folding for a while, players want excitement. They invent a new move or force a bluff just to feel alive again. Recognize this urge early. Poker is not meant to be exciting all the time. Boredom is part of patience. When you accept that, you protect your stack from creative self-destruction. Observe strong professionals. They rarely look dramatic. Their moves seem simple, clean and logical. Yet beneath that simplicity lies deep understanding. They have learned that clarity wins more than flash. The best players blend subtle creativity within structure, not outside it. If you ever catch yourself thinking, "This move will surprise them," pause. That thought often signals ego, not strategy. Good poker surprises no one. It simply makes sense. Avoiding fancy play syndrome is not about killing creativity. It is about grounding it in reason. A well-timed bluff or a clever trap has value when used carefully. But your foundation must remain solid, patient, consistent, and logical. When you strip away the need to impress, your decisions become quiet, steady, and profitable. And in poker, that quiet simplicity is the truest form of mastery. Chapter 19. Recognizing Player Types. Every poker table is a mix of personalities. Some players are tight and cautious. Others are wild and unpredictable. A few seem balanced, quietly adapting to everyone else. Learning to recognize these player types quickly gives you an immediate edge. In cash games, where you often face the same people for long sessions, pattern recognition becomes one of your most reliable tools. The first step is to observe without judgment. Forget stereotypes or assumptions about age, gender, or style. Focus only on actions. How many hands do they play? How do they respond to aggression? How large are their bets compared to the pot? Each small behavior paints a clearer picture. One of the most common types is the tight passive player, often called a rock. They play very few hands and almost never bluff. When they raise, they usually have something strong. These players are predictable but dangerous if you ignore their signals. Against them, avoid bluffing often. Instead, take small pots through pressure and respect their big bets. Their weakness is hesitation. Their strength is patience. The opposite of the rock is the loose aggressive player, or lag. They play many hands and apply constant pressure. Their style can feel chaotic, but it is often designed to keep others uncomfortable. Against a lag, tighten your range and trap with strong hands. Let them build pots for you. Avoid emotional battles. Calm patience beats aggression over time, when logic guides your defense. Then there are loose passive players, sometimes called calling stations. They love to see flops and hate folding. These players will chase weak draws or call with second pair. Against them, bluffing is wasted effort. Value bet relentlessly instead. You will not win pots through fear. You will win through consistent extraction. The most dangerous players are the tight aggressive or tag type. They play few hands, but when they enter a pot, they do so with intention. They balance patience and pressure, switching gears when needed. Against a good tag, you must rely on observation. Pay attention to their bet sizing and timing to spot small leaks. Avoid predictable lines. Against strength, stay cautious. Against hesitation, push back lightly. Another category is the recreational player, the casual visitor who plays for entertainment rather than long-term profit. They may not follow consistent logic, which makes them unpredictable. Against these players, simplify your strategy. Avoid fancy bluffs or deep analysis. Focus on clear value and straightforward play. They give away information easily through body language and reaction. In online cash games, you can identify player types through statistics or behavior over time. Frequent limpers, constant raisers, and quick folders all reveal patterns. Even without physical tells, consistency builds a readable profile. The same principles apply: patience, observation, and adaptation. Player types also change throughout a session. A loose player may tighten up after a big loss. A cautious one may grow frustrated and start over-betting. Tilt transforms style. Stay alert for these emotional shifts. Adapting faster than your opponents gives you silent control of the table's flow. When you know who you are facing, every decision becomes clearer. You can size bets more effectively, choose bluff spots wisely, and avoid unnecessary risks. Poker turns from guessing into strategy. Your own image interacts with theirs too. Against tight players, loosen up. Against loose ones, tighten down. Against aggressive players, stay patient and let them hang themselves. Against passive players, lead with clarity. The more precisely you understand the mix, the easier it becomes to guide the rhythm of the game. Remember that these categories are not labels, but tools. They help you simplify observation, not stereotype people. Every opponent shifts across types depending on emotion and circumstance. The goal is to notice where they are now, not where they were an hour ago. Recognizing player types teaches you that poker is not just about cards. It is about people, how they think, react, and change. The cards only set the stage. The real game unfolds in the patterns of behavior that play across the table, waiting for the calm, patient player to notice and quietly adapt. Chapter 20. Controlling the size of the pot. In cash games, every decision shapes the size of the pot. A small mistake in bet sizing or timing can quickly grow into a large and stressful confrontation. The ability to control pot size, to build it when you want, and keep it small when you do not, is one of the most important long-term skills in poker. Pot control protects your stack, manages risk, and lets you play with clarity instead of fear. The simplest rule is this: when you have a strong hand, build the pot. When you have a medium-strength hand, keep it small. It sounds obvious, but many players reverse it out of emotion. They get nervous with big hands and bet too small, or they get attached to weak hands and bet too large. Clear thinking means matching your bet size to the true strength of your holding and the story you want to tell. When you are confident you hold the best hand, think about how to grow the pot naturally. Start with smaller bets early to keep opponents involved, then increase size as the hand develops. The goal is not to scare them away, but to extract value, step by step. Control does not mean playing timidly, it means being deliberate. With medium-strength hands like top pair with a weak kicker or a second pair, pot control keeps you safe. Checking back on one street or calling instead of raising limits your exposure. By keeping the pot small, you can still reach showdown without risking your entire stack. Folding later becomes easier when you have not overinvested. Calm players know that avoiding one big mistake is often worth more than chasing one big win. Position helps you control the pot. Acting last lets you decide whether to inflate or contain it. When you are out of position, control becomes harder. You may need to check more often or choose smaller bets to avoid giving your opponent too much leverage. A simple check in the right moment can save many chips in the long run. Stack depth also matters. With deep stacks, pots can grow quickly. If you start with large bets early, you may end up in a bloated pot that forces difficult river decisions. Before betting, consider how large the pot could become by the end. Think several streets ahead. Each bet should fit into a plan. Pot control is not about reacting to each street separately. It is about guiding the hand as a whole. Board texture guides your decision too. On dry boards with few draws, keeping the pot smaller makes sense with marginal hands. On wet boards full of straight and flush possibilities, build the pot early when you are strong, and protect your equity with larger bets. The state of the board should always match the pace of the pot. Many players lose control because they bet automatically. They continuation bet every flop or raise too often without reason. In cash games, this habit builds pots that no one truly understands. Break that pattern. Before every bet, ask yourself, do I want this pot bigger or smaller? That single question builds awareness. Emotional reactions destroy pot control faster than anything else. When anger or pride takes over, players double their bet size, chase draws or call raises they should fold. Every time you act emotionally, the pot grows without purpose. The calm player wins by keeping size linked to logic. Pot control also helps disguise your range. By varying when and how you build pots, opponents cannot easily read your strength. A check with a strong hand now and then, or a small bet with air creates balance. The goal is to remain unpredictable while still protecting your equity. Think of pot control as steering, not restraint. You are not afraid of risk, you are guiding it. You are keeping the game within the boundaries where your decisions stay clear. Over long sessions, this skill becomes a shield. You lose smaller when behind and win bigger when ahead. When you master pot control, you stop letting the cards decide the size of your risk. You decide. And in poker, that quiet control is where confidence truly begins. Chapter 21. The Power of Continuation Betting. Continuation betting, often called c-betting, is one of the most common and important tools in poker. It means betting the flop after you raised pre-flop, regardless of whether you connected with the board. The idea is simple. You represented strength before the flop, and now you continue that story. Used correctly, it applies steady pressure and wins many small pots without showdown. Used carelessly, it burns chips and creates problems. The key is understanding when and why to continuation bet. C-betting works because aggression has momentum. When you raise pre-flop, most opponents assume you hold strong cards. If they miss the flop, they will often fold to your next bet. This dynamic allows a single c-bet to win many uncontested pots. But the power of this move depends on awareness, timing, and table texture. Start by thinking about the board. Dry, unconnected boards like King 7-2 or Ace 5-5 favor the pre-flop raiser. These flops are unlikely to hit your opponent's range, so a small continuation bet often wins. On the other hand, coordinated flops like 9-10 Jack with two suits connect strongly with calling ranges. Bluffing into those boards is dangerous. When the board favors your opponent's calling hands, check more often. Position plays a large role in c-betting success. When you act last, your continuation bets carry more weight because you see how your opponents react before making a move. In position, you can size smaller and still earn folds. Out of position, be more selective. Without information, you risk bloating pots with weak holdings. Sometimes checking and controlling the pot protects your stack and maintains balance. Your table image also affects how often you should SCO-bet. If you have been aggressive for several orbits, opponents will call lighter to test you. In that case, reduce your bluffing frequency and c-bet mainly for value. If you have been quiet, your bets command respect, a perfect time to apply gentle pressure. Awareness of how others see you determines how often you can push them off hands. Bet sizing should match your story. Small key bets work best on dry flops. They risk little and achieve the same fold frequency as larger ones. On draw-heavy flops, increase the size slightly to protect your equity. Avoid extremes. Large bets with nothing or tiny bets with monsters create patterns that smart opponents will notice. Keep your rhythm consistent so your range remains balanced. A common mistake is K-betting too often. Many players fire automatically on every flop after raising pre-flop. This habit turns their range transparent and wastes chips when opponents learn to call down. Be selective. Choose flops that logically connect to your pre-flop range. Check back occasionally to stay unpredictable and to control pot size when you miss completely. C-betting also works well as a setup for later streets. Sometimes you K-bet the flop, not to win immediately, but to build the story for a turn or river barrel. If you plan to continue bluffing later, make sure the texture supports that progression. The best bluffs feel believable because they evolve naturally from earlier actions. On the flip side, know when to stop. If an opponent calls your CB bet and the turn brings a card that heavily favors their range, accept that the story may no longer hold. Checking back or giving up is not weakness, it is discipline. Many players lose money by forcing their plan even when the situation has changed. When you hit the flop, continuation betting becomes even more valuable. It extracts value while maintaining consistency in your strategy. Your opponents will not know when you have it and when you do not. This balance is what keeps your entire approach profitable. In the long run, continuation betting is not about constant aggression. It is about measured pressure. You bet when logic supports it, not habit. You recognize when the board, position, and image align in your favor. Used calmly, the C-bet becomes one of poker's most efficient and reliable tools. A small act of control that wins quietly, one pot at a time. Chapter 22. Extracting value from weak players. In every cash game, some players give away money without realizing it. They call too much, chase bad draws, or play hands that never should have been touched. These are weak players, not in character, but in discipline. They make mistakes you can quietly profit from, but only if you approach them correctly. Extracting value from weak players is not about aggression. It is about patience, observation, and consistency. The first rule is simple: do not bluff them often. Weak players love to call. They fear being bluffed more than losing chips. They want to see cards. Against this mindset, bluffing burns money. Focus instead on value betting, strong hands. Make clear, confident bets when you are ahead, and let them call you down. Over time, they will pay you repeatedly, without realizing it. Weak players also dislike folding draws. If the board shows two suited cards or connected ranks, expect them to call with any piece of potential. Use this to your advantage by betting enough to make their calls mathematically incorrect. Each time they chase and miss, you profit. Charge them for their curiosity. Observation helps you identify the specific kind of weak player you are dealing with. Some are loose passive, calling everything but rarely raising. Others are loose aggressive, bluffing too much, but folding easily when confronted. The passive ones feed you value through calls. The aggressive ones feed you value by overplaying weak hands. Adjust your approach accordingly. Against loose passive players, patience is your weapon. Build pots gradually, with strong holdings. Avoid slow playing. They will call big bets with top pair or even worse. Bet for value and keep sizing steady. They will convince themselves to call every street, and you will quietly collect. Against loose aggressive players, use control and traps. Let them do the betting for you. Call down with strong hands instead of re-raising too early. When they sense weakness, they will keep firing, handing you chips one street at a time. Just be sure your hand can stand pressure before you take this approach. Never teach weak players during a session. Do not point out mistakes, correct their lines, or give advice. The less they realize about their errors, the longer they remain profitable opponents. Keep the game friendly and light-hearted. Encourage conversation, smile, and stay calm. A relaxed environment makes weak players comfortable, and comfortable players make predictable choices. Keep emotion out of your strategy. It is easy to grow impatient when weak players get lucky. They will call down with bad hands and sometimes win. This does not mean your approach is wrong. Over many hours, the math will correct itself. Your edge comes from repetition, not revenge. Be careful not to over-adjust. Some players swing from tight to loose depending on mood or recent results. Track behavior across multiple sessions. The best way to exploit weakness is to understand its rhythm, when they call too much, when they bluff too often, and when they tighten up after a loss. Position magnifies your advantage. Sitting to the left of a weak player gives you control over pots and pressure. You can isolate them, play more pots heads up, and use your position to extract value efficiently. Avoid sitting directly to their right, where you act first and lose control of the hand's pace. One of the greatest traps is trying to punish weak players. When you start forcing bluffs or raising thinly just to prove dominance, you fall into the same emotional hole they live in. Stay detached. Let math and logic do the work. Over the long term, value extraction from weak players feels slow but steady. You win small pots again and again while protecting your stack from risk. Each session adds up quietly. You will not notice the profit in a single night, but after months of calm play, it becomes clear. The art of extracting value is really the art of discipline. You let others make the mistakes. You wait. You bet, clearly. You fold calmly. And through that patience, you turn their chaos into your consistency, one controlled hand at a time. Chapter 23. Facing strong opponents. Every poker player eventually faces opponents who know what they are doing. They think ahead, read situations well, and adjust quickly. These strong players can be intimidating, but they also offer valuable lessons. Playing against them sharpens your awareness, forces discipline, and tests your patience. You do not beat strong opponents by overpowering them. You beat them by staying calm, selective, and logical. The first rule when facing skilled players is respect without fear. A strong opponent deserves attention, but not intimidation. Over-respect leads to folding too much or avoiding confrontation altogether. Under-respect leads to reckless aggression that they easily exploit. The right mindset is neutral. Recognize their ability, stay aware, and trust your own process. Observation is your first line of defense. Study how they size their bets, how often they continuation bet, and which boards they attack. Strong players rely on patterns just like everyone else. Their patterns are simply cleaner. Look for small deviations. When their timing changes or their bet size shifts suddenly, that often signals adjustment or uncertainty. Quiet focus turns their strength into data you can use. Do not try to outplay strong opponents every hand. Pick your battles carefully. Many players waste chips trying to prove they can win every pot against a professional. That mindset leads to frustration and mistakes. Instead, let the game come to you. Play tight, focus on position, and avoid marginal situations. Small, steady profits matter more than flashy victories. Strong opponents exploit weakness quickly. If you start bluffing too often, they will catch on. If you become too passive, they will run you over. Balance your range so your actions remain unpredictable. Mix in occasional bluffs when your story makes sense, but never rely on them. Against sharp players, your best defense is logic and consistency. Position becomes even more critical. Avoid playing large pots out of position against skilled players. They thrive on post-flop control and can pressure you relentlessly when they act last. When possible, target weaker players and leave the pros for smaller, lower-risk confrontations. You gain more from volume against mistakes than from dueling with strength. Adjust your tempo. Strong players often dictate pace. They speed up and slow down to throw you off balance. Keep your rhythms steady. Take the same amount of time on all decisions, both big and small. Predictable timing makes you harder to read. Emotional or rushed responses give away information they do not deserve. Value bet cleanly. Good players respect structure. When you have strong hands, bet for value and let them make the tough decisions. They will fold correctly most of the time, but even small mistakes against your value hands matter. You cannot force big wins from strong opponents, but you can earn quiet ones through clarity. If a strong opponent keeps targeting you, use that aggression against them. Let them continuation bet too often, then raise on boards that hit your range. Call them down when their story feels inconsistent. Stay alert for imbalance. Even good players overextend when they believe they have control. Above all, control emotion. Skilled players use pressure to test your patience. They may 3-bet more, attack weak spots, or provoke reaction. Do not let pride pull you into unnecessary battles. Every decision should still pass the same calm test. Is this profitable long-term? Ego plays short-term poker. Discipline plays forever. Facing strong opponents also improves your game. Take mental notes. Watch how they handle bad beats, how they adjust to different players, and how they size bets with purpose. Learn from their process, not just their results. Quietly absorbing these lessons builds strength that no book can teach. Remember that poker is not about proving superiority. You are not required to win every matchup. The goal is to make correct, profitable decisions against all players. Some sessions will humble you. Accept those as tuition. Over time, the lessons you learn from strong opponents will make weaker ones far easier to handle. In cash games, the calm player survives every challenge. When facing strength, your edge is patience. Let others chase control, while you protect clarity. Play solid, observe deeply, and trust that steady logic, not bravado, will always bring balance back to your side of the table. Chapter 24. Staying focused during long sessions. Cash games often last for hours. Some stretch deep into the night, filled with long periods of waiting and short bursts of intensity. Maintaining focus through that rhythm is one of the hardest parts of poker. Fatigue, hunger, distraction, and emotions slowly chip away at discipline. Staying focused during long sessions is not about constant attention. It is about pacing your mind, protecting energy, and keeping clarity steady from the first hand to the last. The first step is preparation. Long sessions begin before you sit down. Eat something light but filling. Avoid heavy meals that make you sluggish. Bring water or simple snacks to maintain energy. A clear body supports a clear mind. Poker requires calm endurance, not spikes of adrenaline. Set small mental checkpoints. Divide the session into segments, perhaps every hour or every 100 hands. Use each checkpoint to pause and reset. Take a deep breath, stretch, or walk for a minute. This brief ritual resets focus and prevents fatigue from building unnoticed. The best players know when to take short breaks before their mind drifts. Keep your posture relaxed but attentive. Slouching over time signals fatigue to your brain. Sit upright, keep breathing steady, and avoid tension in your shoulders or jaw. Small physical adjustments create large mental differences. Your body and mind stay connected through awareness. Avoid multitasking, especially in online play. Checking your phone, chatting, or scrolling between hands quietly weakens focus. Distraction invites impatience. You miss details, bet sizes, timing, and reactions that matter most. When you play, play fully. The game deserves your whole attention. Fatigue also affects emotion. As sessions grow long, patience wears thin. You begin to justify weaker calls or unnecessary bluffs. This is mental drift, the slow erosion of logic under tiredness. When you notice frustration rising or decisions feeling rushed, step away. Fold a few hands, take a short walk, or end the session entirely. The discipline to stop is as valuable as the will to continue. Hydration and breathing help more than most players realize. Dehydration makes focus fade without warning. Keep water nearby and sip regularly. Deep breathing resets your nervous system and keeps anxiety low. Quiet, rhythmic breaths restore balance between hands. Use calm observation to stay engaged. When you are not in a hand, study others. Watch how they size bets or react to pressure. Turning idle time into learning time prevents boredom and keeps your mind sharp. Observation creates a steady rhythm that replaces the temptation to zone out. Music can help or hurt, depending on the environment. Choose calm instrumental sounds if you use headphones, never fast or emotional tracks. The goal is to support focus, not shift mood. For some players, silence works best. Find what grounds you and stay consistent. Manage expectations. Not every session needs to be long. Some of your best results will come from shorter, focused play. If your mind feels dull, stop before mistakes multiply. Cash games are always waiting. There is no reward for grinding when clarity is gone. Avoid caffeine overload. It helps for short bursts, but creates sharp crashes later. Steady energy is better than temporary excitement. Mental endurance is about maintaining calm awareness, not chasing stimulation. Review your mindset throughout the night. Ask yourself, am I still thinking clearly? Am I playing my best game? These small check-ins anchor you in awareness. If the answer drifts toward no, that is your signal to reset or rest. The most dangerous part of a long session is the final hour. Fatigue combines with the desire to finish ahead. Players force wins or chase losses. Recognize this trap early. The last hour should be your calmest. You are playing for discipline, not outcome. Focus in poker is not permanent concentration. It is rhythm, periods of deep attention, followed by small resets. When you respect your energy like your chips, you last longer, think clearer, and make decisions that reflect your true ability. In long sessions, the quiet player with steady focus is always favored. Their mind moves slow but sharp, untouched by time or tilt. They are patient when others fade. And when the session finally ends, they leave not just with chips, but with the calm satisfaction of control. Chapter 25. Understanding Implied Odds. Implied odds are one of the quiet foundations of cash game strategy. They represent the money you expect to win in future betting rounds, if your hand improves. While pot odds tell you whether a call is immediately profitable, implied odds look ahead. They measure potential. Understanding this difference helps you decide when to chase a draw, when to fold, and when a small investment could lead to a big return. Imagine you hold a small pocket pair, and an opponent raises before the flop. The immediate pot odds might not justify calling. But if you believe that hitting a set will win you your opponent's entire stack, the implied odds make the call worthwhile. In this case, you are not paying just to see a flop. You are paying for the chance to win much more later. The math behind implied odds starts with probability. You compare the cost of your call to the expected reward if you hit your hand. If you are calling $10 to try to win 100 when your draw completes, you are receiving strong implied odds. But this only matters if your opponent will actually pay off. Against tight, disciplined players who fold easily, implied odds shrink. Against loose players who call too much, they grow. Position enhances implied odds. When you act last, you control the flow of future bets. You can choose whether to build the pot or keep it small. That flexibility allows you to extract maximum value when you hit your draw. Out of position, your implied odds often decrease because it is harder to build the pot without revealing your strength. Deep stacks also increase implied odds. When both you and your opponent have many big blinds, the potential reward grows. This is why speculative hands like suited connectors and small pairs become valuable in deep cash games, but lose value in short stack play. The more chips behind, the more future betting space exists for profit. However, implied odds can be deceptive. Many players overestimate how much they will win when they hit. They imagine perfect outcomes instead of realistic ones. If your draw completes but the board becomes scary, such as a third flush card or a paired board, opponents may fold or slow down. Always balance optimism with caution. Real implied odds come from experience and pattern recognition, not hope. Reverse implied odds are equally important. These occur when hitting your hand could still lose you money. For example, holding a weak flush draw on a paired board may lead to disaster if your opponent already has a full house. In these cases, even a winning hand can cost you more than it earns. Learn to recognize when draws are dangerous rather than profitable. Timing matters too. Early in a hand, implied odds carry the most weight because multiple betting rounds remain. On the river, there are no implied odds left, only direct pot odds. Understanding where you stand in the hand helps you apply this concept correctly. Use implied odds to guide pre-flop decisions as well. Calling with hands like suited connectors or small pairs from late position makes sense when stacks are deep and opponents play loosely. But against short stacks or aggressive players who rarely pay off, fold those same hands. Without room for future profit, implied odds vanish. Patience defines good use of implied odds. You are investing in long-term value, not short-term thrill. Many small calls may lead to occasional big wins, but the key is ensuring each one is mathematically justified. Consistency in these small, logical choices separates disciplined players from hopeful gamblers. When you combine implied odds with position, stack awareness, and player observation, the game slows down. You see each decision as part of a larger structure, not just an isolated choice. You stop chasing cards blindly and start making calls with purpose. Implied odds are not about luck. They are about planning. You imagine future streets, predict reactions, and measure risk against potential reward. The calm player understands that every call carries a story. And when that story unfolds as expected, the reward feels less like a surprise and more like the natural result of quiet, disciplined logic. Chapter 26. Reading board texture. Every flop tells a story. The combination of 3 cards that land in the center of the table defines how the hand will unfold. Some boards are calm and unthreatening. Others explode with possible draws and shifting dangers. Learning to read board texture helps you decide when to bet, when to check, and how strong your hand really is in context. In cash games, this awareness separates reactive players from strategic ones. Board texture refers to how coordinated or disconnected the community cards are. A dry board has little connection between ranks and suits, like King 7-2 with all different suits. These flops favor the pre-flop raiser, since they are unlikely to help the caller. On such boards, continuation bets often succeed because your story of strength makes sense. A wet board is the opposite. It includes connected cards and multiple suits that open straight or flush possibilities, such as 9-10 Jack with 2 hearts. These flops favor players who called pre-flop, as their ranges include more suited connectors and middle cards. On wet boards, betting carelessly invites danger. Your opponent's range likely connects more often, so bluffing loses value while protection bets and pot control gain importance. Between these two extremes lies the semi-wet board, such as Ace 9-5 with 2 suits. It carries some draw potential, but not total chaos. Here, the best approach is balanced, cautious but assertive. You can continuation bet with strong hands and semi-bluffs, but you must remain aware that the texture may shift dramatically on later streets. When reading texture, consider range advantage, which players' likely hands connect more with the board. If you raised pre-flop, and the flop comes low and connected, your opponent's range might fit better. In that case, slow down. If the flop lands high and unconnected, your range has the advantage, and betting makes more sense. Logical awareness of ranges prevents emotional decisions. Texture also guides bet sizing. On dry boards, smaller bets achieve the same fold equity as large ones. On wet boards, larger bets protect your equity and charge draws. Adjusting size to texture shows discipline and understanding. It also keeps your lines believable, which strengthens your bluffs and maximizes value when you hit. Board texture evolves across streets. A safe flop can turn dangerous when the turn adds a third suited card or completes a straight. Reevaluate the story each time a new card falls. Ask yourself, who does this card help? If it benefits your opponent's range, slow down. If it strengthens your own, apply pressure. Constant recalibration is how strong players maintain control while others get lost. Texture also helps in hand reading. When a passive opponent suddenly raises on a dry board, that usually signals real strength. There are few draws they could represent, so their action carries weight. On wet boards, however, raises can represent both strong hands and strong draws, requiring deeper analysis. Paying attention to how the board interacts with action turns guessing into deduction. Knowing texture also prevents emotional overcommitment. Many players fall in love with top pair on dangerous boards, ignoring how many hands can now beat them. When the texture shifts against you, accept it calmly. A disciplined fold saves more in the long run than a stubborn call for pride. Texture awareness is not just about fear. It is about opportunity. Recognizing when the board strongly favors your range allows you to attack confidently. For example, on a low disconnected flop, after raising pre-flop, your opponent often misses completely. A well-timed continuation bet here wins quietly. Developing this skill takes observation. Watch how different opponents react to various textures. Some fold instantly on coordinated flops, others chase any hint of a draw. Each reaction adds another piece to your strategy. Over time, the patterns become second nature. When you read board texture clearly, poker slows down. You stop reacting emotionally to the cards and start analyzing logically. You see structure where others see chaos. Every flop becomes a landscape, some open, some dangerous, some shifting, and you learn how to move through them calmly, step by step, with patience and precision. Chapter 27. Adapting to Table Dynamics. Every poker table develops its own rhythm. Some games are calm and quiet. Others are loud, fast, and unpredictable. The mix of personalities, stack sizes, and recent results creates what players call table dynamics, the flow of energy and behavior that changes how the game feels. Learning to read and adapt to those dynamics is one of the most valuable soft skills in cash games. It allows you to stay ahead of emotional shifts and play the table, not just the cards. Table dynamics are always in motion. 1 hour may start slow, with everyone folding and playing tight. After a big pot or a lucky river, the same players might loosen up and start chasing. A single aggressive player can change the pace for everyone else. When you sit down, begin by observing the atmosphere. Is the table passive or aggressive? Serious or social? Tight or loose? The answers to these questions determine your first adjustments. At a tight table, where few players enter pots, aggression becomes profitable. You can steal blinds more often, continuation bet frequently, and apply pressure with position. Tight players fold too much because they fear risk. Use that fear gently, but consistently. There is no need for large bluffs. Small, steady pressure earns quiet profit. At a loose table, caution becomes strength. When multiple players see every flop, patience beats speed. Focus on value hands and avoid bluffing into groups. The more people in a pot, the lower your fold equity becomes. Bet your strong hands directly and let others call you down. The chaos of loose games rewards calm structure. If the table is aggressive, stay centered. Aggressive environments tempt players to fight back. Instead of joining the war, pick your spots carefully. Let others collide and make mistakes. When you have position and a strong hand, trap their aggression. The best response to chaos is patience, not panic. When the table feels passive, you can take command. Raise more often, continuation bet more frequently, and lead pots confidently. Passive tables reward initiative because no one challenges authority. Just remember to stay disciplined. Confidence can turn to overconfidence quickly if you start pushing every hand. Dynamics also shift after big hands. When someone wins a large pot, they often loosen up, feeling untouchable. Others tighten up, afraid to lose more. Recognize this emotional swing. The player who just lost may tilt and play poorly for the next few orbits. The player who just won may overextend. Adjust quietly to both. Group mood matters too. A friendly, laughing table encourages looser play. A quiet table filled with serious faces leads to more cautious decisions. Match the tone but stay grounded. Do not let the group's energy drag you away from discipline. You can use their rhythm without being controlled by it. Stack sizes influence dynamics as well. When several players are deep, expect more multi-street battles and complex bluffs. When stacks are short, the game becomes more mathematical and direct. Adjust your hand selection and bet sizing to fit. Pay attention to your own role in shaping dynamics. If you have been active, others may tighten up, creating opportunities for value betting. If you have been quiet, the table may view you as passive, perfect for a well-timed bluff. Your own image interacts with the table's energy constantly. Awareness of both layers allows you to move with precision. Avoid getting attached to one strategy. What worked an hour ago may not work now. The ability to change gears, to loosen up when others tighten, to slow down when others get wild, defines adaptability. Poker rewards players who remain fluid, not rigid. Emotion often drives table shifts more than logic. When tension rises, step back mentally. You cannot control others' moods, but you can control your response. Calm awareness keeps you safe, while others drift into emotional play. Adapting to table dynamics is like sailing. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Some nights the breeze is soft and steady. Other nights it changes direction every few minutes. The skilled player does not fight it. They adjust, stay balanced, and keep moving forward. When you learn to feel these shifts without forcing them, the game becomes peaceful. You stop reacting to chaos and start guiding it quietly. And in that calm awareness, you find control not through dominance, but through harmony with the table itself. Chapter 28. Protecting your mental game. Poker is not only a test of logic, it is a test of endurance, patience, and emotion. Over the course of long sessions, your mental state becomes your greatest ally, or your worst enemy. A calm mind makes good decisions. A tired or angry mind leaks chips. Protecting your mental game means taking care of the thoughts and habits that shape every move you make at the table. Your first goal is emotional awareness. Most players notice when they are happy or angry, but ignore the smaller feelings between. Frustration, boredom, fear, and pride all creep in quietly. These emotions do not shout, they whisper into your decisions. A slightly frustrated player starts calling too light. A bored one starts bluffing for fun. A proud one refuses to fold. Recognizing these moods early is how you prevent damage. Learn your personal signs of tilt. Maybe you start talking more, betting faster, or leaning forward when irritated. Maybe you feel the urge to win back losses immediately. These are warning lights on your mental dashboard. When they appear, pause. Fold a few hands, take deep breaths, or stand up. A single minute of space often resets your balance better than any pep talk could. Your mental game begins before you play. Entering a session tired, stressed, or distracted is like sitting down already tilted. Prepare your mindset the same way you prepare your bankroll. Eat, rest, and clear your head. You do not need to feel perfect, only stable. Poker rewards consistency, not emotion. Detachment is your best defense. Once chips leave your stack, they are no longer yours. Do not measure success by individual pots or sessions. Focus on the quality of your decisions, not the outcome of a single hand. When you release attachment to results, variance loses its emotional power. You begin to play with freedom. Protect your focus with clear boundaries. If you feel your concentration slipping, step away before mistakes multiply. Many players keep playing because they don't want to leave down. That mindset turns temporary losses into permanent ones. The calm player understands that rest is part of discipline. Mindful breathing is a simple but powerful habit. Between hands, take a slow inhale through your nose, then a longer exhale through your mouth. This lowers heart rate and restores presence. You cannot control the next card, but you can control your breath. It brings you back to the only place that matters, this exact moment. Avoid emotional contagion. The mood of others spreads quickly. A loud loser or overconfident winner can infect your mindset if you are not careful. Protect your peace by staying internally quiet. You do not need to match the table's energy. Let them drift while you stay still. Honesty with yourself is essential. If you are playing poorly, admit it and stop. Many players hide from this truth, convincing themselves they are fine when they are not. Real strength is stepping away before damage spreads. The best players know when to rest, just as they know when to raise. Outside of poker, strengthen your mental game through healthy routines. Exercise, balanced meals, and good sleep are not luxuries. They are part of your edge. A clear mind processes information faster and resists tilt longer. Emotional endurance grows from daily habits, not from wishful thinking. Perspective protects you too. Remember that poker is a long game. Every player endures bad runs. Every player faces luck, both cruel and kind. The difference lies in response. Do you react or reflect? The one who reflects learns and returns stronger. The one who reacts repeats the same mistakes. Protecting your mental game does not mean suppressing emotion. It means meeting emotion with awareness. You can feel frustrated, tired, or disappointed without acting on it. This quiet separation between feeling and reaction is where professionalism begins. In the end, the strongest mind in poker is not the one that never tilts. It is the one that tilts less, recovers faster, and stays calm under pressure. You win not by conquering emotion, but by learning to move with it. When you master that rhythm, you stop battling yourself and start playing with peace, no matter how the cards fall. Chapter 29. Building consistent profit habits. Consistency is the quiet foundation of all long-term poker success. Luck rises and falls. Hot streaks come and go. But habits, the steady patterns you build into your process, create lasting results. In cash games, where the margins are small and the grind is long, profit is not made through single heroic moments. It is built through discipline, patience, and structure, repeated over and over again. The first step toward consistency is routine. Treat poker like a craft, not a gamble. Before each session, prepare in the same calm way. Review your bankroll, set time goals, and clear distractions. Approach the table with the same mindset every time, whether you are winning or losing. Routine turns chaos into stability. Set a stop loss and a win goal before playing. A stop loss is the amount you allow yourself to lose before ending a session. A win goal is a number that tells you to lock in profit rather than chase more. These limits protect your focus from emotion. Without them, even good sessions can end badly when greed or tilt creeps in. Track every session carefully. Record wins, losses, hours, and notes about your mindset. Over time, patterns appear. You may notice that you play better at certain times of day, or lose more after long breaks. Honest record keeping turns experience into data. That data becomes one of your most powerful teachers. Keep your play within a bankroll management plan. Your bankroll is not just money, it is your oxygen supply. Playing within limits prevents desperation and allows steady progress. A good rule for cash games is to keep at least 20 to 30 full buy-ins for your regular stakes. When you move up, do it because your bankroll allows, not because emotion tempts you. Discipline also means showing up when conditions are good and resting when they are not. Some players force sessions out of boredom or obligation. Others sit in tough games just to prove themselves. Neither builds consistency. Choose environments where your focus and skill shine. A small edge repeated often is better than a risky leap into uncertainty. Eliminate bad habits gradually. Maybe you play too many hands out of position, or bluff too much after losing a pot. Identify one leak at a time and focus on fixing it. Improvement in poker is not about perfection, it is about refinement. Each small correction compounds quietly over hundreds of hours. Keep your emotional life balanced outside of poker. Anger, stress, or distraction from daily life always find their way into your play. Protecting your peace away from the table keeps your mind clear at the table. You cannot build consistent profit with an inconsistent life. Study between sessions. Review hands you were unsure about. Discuss strategy with others, or watch replays of professional games. Learning should feel calm and steady, not rushed. 10 minutes of focused review after each session builds more growth than hours of distracted play. Avoid the trap of short-term thinking. Many players measure success by daily or weekly results. Professionals measure by months or even years. When you think long-term, variance feels smaller. Bad nights become details, not disasters. Consistency comes from trust. Trust in your process, your math, and your habits. Take care of your body and mind. Exercise, stretch, and sleep well. Long sessions are easier to handle when your physical state supports endurance. Clarity in thought comes from clarity in health. Even simple habits like walking after play or drinking water regularly contribute more to profit than people realize. Keep your ego in check. Confidence builds momentum, but arrogance blinds awareness. The moment you believe you have mastered the game, you stop improving. Stay humble, curious, and open to learning. Consistent profit grows from steady awareness, not pride. Finally, remember that consistency is not built in perfect days. It is built in ordinary ones, when you are tired but still follow your process, when you lose but still stop on time, when you study even after a bad run. These small moments of discipline are where long-term stability is born. The player who builds structure around logic never needs luck to survive. Over time, variance fades, and the quiet rhythm of good habits replaces chaos. Poker becomes less about chasing and more about building. One calm decision, one patient session, one profitable habit at a time. Chapter 30. The Calm of Long-Term Thinking. Poker is not a sprint. It is a long, quiet walk through countless hands, decisions, and emotions. The players who last and profit are not the ones who win the biggest pots or pull off the flashiest bluffs. They are the ones who think in years, not hours. Long-term thinking brings calm to the chaos of the game. It frees you from the noise of short-term results and anchors you in process, patience, and perspective. When you first start playing, every session feels important. A win feels like proof of skill. A loss feels like failure. But as experience grows, you begin to see each session as just one chapter in a much larger story. One night's outcome means nothing compared to thousands of future hands. This awareness changes how you play. You stop forcing results and start focusing on quality. Long-term thinking begins with acceptance of variance. You will win with worse hands and lose with better ones. You will play perfectly and still watch the river undo everything. In the moment, these swings feel unfair, but in the long view, they fade into balance. When you understand that luck smooths out over time, emotion loses power over your decisions. Your focus shifts from results to reasoning. Each hand becomes an opportunity to practice logic and discipline, not just to win money. When you play well, you have succeeded, even if the cards go against you. This shift in focus builds consistency. Emotion feeds on outcome. Discipline feeds on process. Thinking long-term also protects you from tilt. Tilt grows from frustration with short-term variance, from wanting control over what cannot be controlled. When your timeline stretches beyond tonight, that frustration disappears. You start viewing downswings as temporary weather, not as failure. The goal becomes endurance, not revenge. Every great cash player builds a strong foundation of patience. They know that profit is measured over hundreds of hours. They never chase losses, never rush wins. They stay calm through streaks and droughts alike, because they trust the math of the game and the steadiness of their habits. Long-term thinking extends beyond poker. It affects how you handle success too. Big wins tempt arrogance. But when you view them as small pieces of a lifelong journey, you stay grounded. You protect your edge by remaining humble. You realize that no single session defines you, only the structure you maintain does. This mindset creates peace during decision-making. Instead of asking, "How do I win this pot?" you ask, "How do I make the best decision for the long run?" That question keeps your actions logical, balanced, and patient. You start folding more confidently, betting more precisely, and resting more willingly. Every move feels less like gambling and more like craftsmanship. In the long term, the goal is not to win every night. It is to become the kind of player who always plays well. The one who endures variance with grace. The one who treats each decision as practice, not performance. Over time, that calm approach compounds. Profits grow not from luck, but from thousands of small, correct choices stacked neatly together. Long-term thinking also changes how you see other players. You stop comparing yourself to short-term winners and start noticing who is still standing year after year. Those are the true examples of success, the ones who manage emotion, protect their focus, and keep improving through patience. Poker will always test your mind, but it rewards those who walk steadily through it. When you build your foundation on long-term thinking, you stop chasing chaos and start building peace. Each hand becomes another small brushstroke in the painting of your career, one guided by logic, patience, and quiet confidence. In time, the calm of long-term thinking becomes more than a skill. It becomes part of who you are. You no longer play to escape life's noise. You play as a reflection of clarity. You move through luck and loss with the same steady breath. And as the years pass, you realize that true mastery in poker is not about winning the most. It is about staying balanced, thoughtful, and calm for as long as the cards keep falling.